Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the book launch of Contemporary Issues in Mediation, Volume 6. Today, we are pleased to have with us a couple of authors and collaborators who wrote and contributed to the book. We have our guest editors with us, Professor Joel Lee, Mr. Marcus Lim, and Mr. Alvin Cheng. We also have with us in our presence a representative from World Scientific Publishing Company, Mr. Hong Kun. And without further ado, we'll be proceeding with the launch. Just a little bit about the CIIM competition and how we actually got entries to the essay. So the sixth iteration of contemporary issues in mediation essay competition saw about 40 local and international entries, right? Following a careful review, our editors have handpicked the 11 essays that you will see in CIIM Volume 6. These essays reflect the turbulence of our times. So, I mean, we've seen COVID and how it has actually affected us. In a world of flux, how does alternative dispute resolution remain relevant and interconnected with society today? So whether you're interested in issues related to cognitive science, religion, domestic violence, finance, artificial intelligence, or Singapore's culture, there's definitely something in this volume of CIIM for you. So whether you're an academic, a seasoned mediator, or just a passionate student about mediation. Today, we are delighted to have with us the editors, authors, and publishers who have contributed to this volume. And this book launch signifies their achievements. I'm going to be introducing to you the editors of CIIM 6 once again. We have with us Professor Joel Lee. He's the professor at the NUS Faculty of Law. We have again with us Mr. Marcus Lim, who is now the country manager of Lupo Singapore. And this year we have with us as guest editor, Mr. Alvin Cheng, who is lecturer at SUSS. In addition to our student editor, Isabella, who is a consultant at Singapore International Mediation Institute. We also have with us Mr. Alvin Sim, who is the new and current executive director of CIIM, and also myself as the head of administration and special projects. I'm now going to introduce to you the publisher of the CIIM series as well. So it's World Scientific World Scientific Publishing Company. And again, we have with us Hong Kun to represent us for the book launch. So throughout the years prior to this volume, we have 5 other volumes. These volumes are available for purchase on WSPC's website. It's also available on Amazon. As you can see, we have a different color across all the different volumes. We started off with blue, moved on to green, purple, a maroon brick yellow or mustard for those of us who are quite particular about colors. And then this year I bring to you an orange shade, which explains the background that some of us are actually sporting here today. So volume 6 is available for purchase through WSPC website, as well as Kinokuniya and possibly Amazon. And now I am going to invite Mr. Alvin Sim, the Executive Director of CIMI, to say a few words.
Thank you, Jessica. Friends, I'm honored to be here to witness the launch of Volume 6 of Contemporary Issues in Mediation. And I'd just like to commend all the authors who have made Volume 6 of CIIM possible. It shows that there's quite a lot of interest in mediation as a discipline and a subspecialty within the various professions. The deep thinking that has gone into these essays shows that there's potential to contribute to the mediation landscape by even people like you at the student level. And I shall try to elaborate on that a bit later on. But being new to the industry, it was an educational experience for me to peruse the articles quickly, for it helped me to understand certain issues and concepts in this field. And as a relative outsider into the body, overseeing standards in mediation, I just have 3 perspectives to share with you today. Firstly, this competition, and for those of you all who have essays published and have therefore been awarded a prize, so to speak, right? this competition is not an end in itself. It is only the beginning. What were your underlying motivations for entering this essay competition? What kind of satisfaction did you hope to get out of writing these essays, whether or not you won any prize or not? And now that you have a publication to your name, what do you do with it? Friends, winning is good, but it's not the important or often not the main thing. And so I'd just like to challenge you to consider, is this activity that you have undertaken just another student activity that allows you to say, I've been there and done that? Far be it. I hope that this will instead spur you to look into your professional life that's ahead of you and consider how you can use your knowledge in mediation to help develop this area as a subspecialty in your professional life ahead. This leads me to my second point. How can we develop mediation as a distinct sub-profession within professions? There's a good body of knowledge being developed here across the years in which CIIM has been published. And in the essays this year, I see a good spread of themes, with mediation intersecting with different disciplines. We see mediation and technology, mediation and society, mediation in industry, mediation discussed with cross-cutting legal issues such as confidentiality. Then, of course, there are substantive mediation topics that have been shared: mediation advocacy standards, transformative mediation. Your essays form the seeds or the basis for thought leadership in the mediation field, and your thoughts can go to help develop mediation as a distinct sub-profession within professions, with a clear set of standards, protocols, philosophies, and rules. So I encourage you to keep these ideas coming, especially in the area of mediation standards. How can we improve on our standards so that they lend increasingly greater legitimacy to mediation as a subspecialty within not just the legal profession, but across various professions where dispute resolution is needed? Lastly, with your depth of knowledge and mediation, what are you going to do in your professional life to practice and thus develop mediation as a specialized subsector? As I said, a specialized subsector within sectors. Friends, this is where the rubber meets the road. While court-facilitated mediation is quite well known in the state court cases, I feel it is still not something that professionals consider as a mainstream part of DR. Currently, we have several pockets of mediation in both public and private sectors via specialist institutions: banking, consumer, and employment disputes, to name a few. But will there ever be a time when mediation is entrenched as part of dispute resolution, one where a mediated settlement agreement is a viable outcome in a wider variety of commercial, societal, and individual disputes? Will there be many more mediators who will be able to say that at least a quarter of their revenue comes from mediation-related work? This is not going to be easy, but perhaps let's try. And it's up to you, my friends, as incoming professionals being unleashed on the public very soon, to take up and shape the future of mediation. So to all the authors whose essays have been published, congratulations once again, and may this be a beginning to further journeys in mediation as you enter your professional life. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvin. So now we have a guest editor speech from Mr. Alvin Cheng. This time, Mr. Alvin Cheng is a lecturer at SUSS.
Thank you, Jessica. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends. I'm actually very honored to be invited to say some words about contemporary issues in mediation, Volume 6, as guest editor. I suppose mediation is something I can talk about for hours on end, but I understand I only have 5 minutes, so I will keep this short. I would focus on 2 areas. One, I would like to give thanks and express my gratitude to all our supporters because without them, this book would not be possible. And second, I would like to say something about planting trees. I'm not going to talk about gardening or horticulture or anything, but I just want to kind of highlight what was said by William Ury in the foreword of the series. Okay, so about giving thanks and gratitude, I'd like to first and foremost thank Joel and Marcus for inviting me to be the guest editor for this edition. It is a very and a most enriching experience. Thank you. I also like to commend the 11 authors whose essays have been selected. They were well written, well researched, and very insightful. The essays cover a wide range of topics, some of it mentioned by Elvin Sim already. They range from, for example, mediation advocacy standards, overcoming cognitive biases, disputes in domestic violence or mediation in domestic violence situations, and in banking or financial disputes, just to name a few. I understand that later on there will be we'll be going into some of these essays in turn, so I won't say so much at this point. And having said that, I would like to, on behalf of the editors, thank many of our supporters, and in no particular order, I'll just kind of call them out. We have Isabella. I'd like to thank her for, or we'd like to thank her for her dedicated and invaluable assistance to the editorial team. We also have, of course, the publishers, our publishers, World Scientific Publishing, for supporting this project from day one, volume 1, all the way through to volume 6 today. We also like to thank the members of the CIIM board, both past and present, and some of them are here with us today, and also the Ministry of Law for their support as well. We also like to thank William Ury for writing the foreword for the series as well. There's also National University of Singapore, the Faculty of Law, which we would like to thank as well for their invaluable assistance in the operations of CIIM. And of course, we would like to thank all the students who have contributed to this project in one way or another. Now you are the inspiration for our work here today. Yeah. And last but not least, I would like to thank all of you for here today attending this book launch. It's good to see many familiar faces, friendly faces, and some new faces as well. So thank you. My second kind of area I just want to touch on is about planting trees. So in his foreword for the series, William Ury actually was describing this young man, and he was watching this old man planting seeds into the ground. Now, he has been doing this for some 40 years. And this young man was kind of wondering, now, why is this old man planting these seeds? You know, planting a tree takes years, many, many years to grow. So why is this old man still planting seeds when he's not going to live long enough to see the fruits of his labor? So he asked the old man, and the old man's answer was, the seeds I plant today are not for me, but for you. So further down in his foreword, William Ury actually goes on to describe the purpose of CIIM, the CIIM's book project, this project, the Contemporary Issues in Mediation. The project is about taking first steps to inspire the youth of today, to encourage them to engage in scholarship about mediation, and to provide them with an opportunity to plant seeds. Now, earlier also, you would have heard Elvin Sim mention about planting seeds, yeah? So the planting of seeds is also for the benefit and enjoyment of the future generation. So that's what William Ury has said in his foreword, to provide them with an opportunity to plant seeds for the benefit and enjoyment of future generations. So in closing, I would like to encourage all of you to continue with your journey, to learn and to share about mediation, because it may be possibly the most rewarding and enriching thing you will ever do. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvin. Or Alvin C this time. So without further ado, now that we have heard a speech from the guest editor as well as the executive director of CIIM, we'll be introducing to you the different authors as well as their essays. Just a quick summary so we all know like what the topics are all about. First of all, I would like to introduce the winner of CIIM Volume 6, Miss Levin Lin. So Miss Levin Lin's essay is actually about the need for mediation advocacy standards in Singapore and where can we turn to for guidance. Without further ado, I'm going to invite Levin to actually share a couple of words with us. As I understand it, she is unable to make the book launch, but she has actually specially recorded a speech for all of us to hear.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Levin, and I'm one of the very fortunate authors whose essay was published in this year's 6th volume of the Contemporary Issues in Mediation. I'm really happy to be able to be here for this book launch. And I guess with this book launch, I can now say that I'm a published author. First of all, I'm very grateful, for the opportunity to be able to share my views on mediation with others through this book. And I feel that this idea of having a book which features a compilation of all the best essay entries from all over the world by writers who have very different perspectives and everyone who's writing on very diverse topics is really an amazing idea. And to me, it reflects what mediation encompasses. We all know, the ability and the skill to listen and to understand one another is actually very important in the mediation. And, the readers of this book, both practitioners and students alike, will themselves be able to, maybe not listen, but to actually read and understand the various perspectives that all of us have. And, and this can go some way in helping them understand, helping them cultivate their own views on the matter as well. So my essay was titled The Need for Mediation Advocacy Standards in Singapore and Where We Can Turn to for Guidance. I remember when I was, choosing an essay topic, I wanted to talk about something that wasn't frequently talked about in Singapore, and also, where there was some sort of gap in the understanding that perhaps many of us have. So I was, thinking about what is a topic that could be relevant, especially since I was actually in my last year of law school and I was going to enter legal practice soon. Of course, being in school, I was involved in a lot of mediation activities, and I wanted to, still be able to contribute in a certain way. And I was wondering, as a mediation advocate, how could I still contribute to each and every mediation I attend, and to ensure that mediation remains the effective form of dispute resolution that we know it and how we envision it to be. So I started Googling around, looking for, are there some sort of mediation advocacy standards or guidelines that maybe I can turn to learn. But I soon realized that there wasn't much literature on this area. And, so I thought, maybe it might be a good idea for me to write about this topic. And I thought that, maybe I could do some research, pull together whatever resources I had, and I might be able to put together something that would be helpful or useful to, any institutions or organizations that can use in developing this area, and this is especially so, when we are, Singapore, is branded as a dispute resolution hub. But I felt that, this was definitely an area that would need to be developed in line with building us as a hub for, for all sorts of dispute resolution. And needless to say, we all understand how big a role mediation advocates can play and have played in various mediations. So yeah, apart from how this was an area that was not very spoken about very often. I think it also stemmed from how mediation was relatively new in Singapore, and not many students would actually be as lucky as me to be exposed to this area. So I've gone through an education where the predominant form of dispute resolution is we were taught and we understand is litigation and arbitration. I realized that a mindset shift was actually very important in order for advocates to play a meaningful role in mediation. But sadly, it's not an area that has been thoroughly explored, and so there wasn't much training or exposure available to students and practitioners. Although I myself haven't been part of the mediation community in Singapore for long, but I have seen how what was done to improve and really to bring to a whole new level the mediator standards in Singapore. Like now there are multiple senior qualified organizations, both national and international, providing mediation courses for anyone who is interested. And I thought that it would be worthwhile to explore how the same could possibly be done for mediation advocates as well. So this was how my essay came to be. And in my essay itself, I have included some references to the existing mediation advocacy standards. And at the back, I've also done up a short annex on my own personal take of what such mediation advocacy standards could be like. So yeah, moving on to the last part of my speech, I would like to thank the World Scientific Publishing for, of course, being the platform on which CIIM is published, as well as the editorial team, Mr. Alvin Cheng, Professor Joe Lee, just Joe, and the last but never forgotten, Mr. Marcus Lim, for doing the tedious work of reading through everyone's essay, editing them, basically making them the best possible end product that they can be. Last but not least, of course, the supporting team for this entire book, newly appointed Executive Director of CIIMI, Mr. Alvin Sim, and of course, the ever wonderful Wonder Woman, Jessica Low. I hope everyone, enjoys reading CIIM Volume 6 as much as I, and I'm sure every other author enjoyed writing essays. Thank you.
That was a very inspiring speech by Ms. Levin Lin, who is also the winner of Contemporary Issues in Mediation, Volume 6. I am now going to introduce the rest of the essays to you and their respective authors as well. So Levin's essay, if you're interested to learn more about mediation advocacy and what she wrote, is available in Chapter 1 of the book. For Chapter 2, we have a piece by Utsa Frakci. It's titled Decoding the Behavioral Science in Mediation. So Utsa's piece actually transplants two theories of cognitive biases, the endowment effect and framing effect, into the mediation context. He explains how methods such as risky choice framing and goal framing can be employed by both mediators and parties. He concludes that altogether, understanding of natural human tendencies and psychological motivations helps instill a greater sense of sensitivity and helps overcome and capitalize on the cognitive biases. Next up, we have a piece by Mr. Terence Yeo titled Banking on Mediation, a critical analysis of financial disputes mediation in Singapore. Terence's chapter analyzes the present and future of the financial disputes resolution scheme in Singapore. He considers the role of FIDREC and analyzes the factors of expeditiousness, fairness, transparency, cost, and accessibility in the processes and outcomes of mediated settlements. He notes that there is room for improvement and suggests additional safeguards to address power imbalances, gaps in transparency, and eligibility concerns. Next up, we have a piece by Ms. Acha Rajavi It is titled, Why Not Have the Best of Both Worlds? A framework to interlink collaborative law and mediation to resolve personal disputes. Asha's essay infuses the concept of collaborative law within the mediation context. She introduces a step-by-step framework that can go towards resolving disputes that involve personal and intimate relationships. In particular, the participatory elements of collaborative law help address the high tension and complex emotions and smoothen power imbalances. She believes that this hybrid model goes beyond finding a meeting point of positions and options and towards building a synergy of ideas. In chapter 5, we have an entry by Ms. Chloe Chua on the functions of artificial intelligence in mediation. So Chloe's piece evaluates the current and future potential of artificial intelligence, also known as AI, to help human facilitators of conflict resolution. Her thesis ponders upon an age-old question: are robots intelligent enough to replace human negotiators or mediators? This considers their ability to organize large amounts of data, to sensitively gather complex inferences, to predict alternative outcomes using case-based reasoning. She determines that at present, AI cannot replicate a human-like consciousness. But what can AI in the future accomplish? Next up, we have a piece by Mr. Dinesh Kumar Sukuma on confidentiality in the Singapore mediation scene. Is it sufficient or can more be done? Dinesh's work explores a crucial element of mediation, confidentiality. He considers the importance of preserving it, particularly in the context of common law, equity, and statutory regulations. In common law, for example, confidentiality can be found in legal professional privilege or without prejudice privilege. Where there are gaps, he looks at how the Mediation Act has actually clarified preceding case law and provided a direction for courts moving forward. Still, he points out ways in which the Mediation Act can further boost the confidentiality. Next up, in chapter 7, we have a piece by Mr. Ian Ma on online mediation, the future that arrived much sooner than we thought. Well, I guess with COVID-19, this is quite an important piece to read on. So Ian's chapter touches on the quintessential subject of a post-COVID dispute resolution era, online alternative dispute resolution. Although many organizations have been forced to adapt to this new norm, he considers the apparent disadvantages of online mediation. Acknowledging the changing landscape, he puts forth a future-ready toolkit for online mediation, factoring in the linguistic nuances, generational differences, and confidentiality issues in communication. In chapter 8, we have a piece by Ms. Sabrina Chow on exploring what mediation looks like in the religious spheres of Islam and Christianity. Our values and beliefs shape who we are, and this is reflected in Sabrina's piece when she compares the place of mediation in religious communities and with its conventional secular model. In particular, she looks at the three main biblical ideas that shape Christian mediation: the doctrine of unity, the Christian mentality of humility and selflessness, and the conviction to love and forgive the people around you. She provides an interesting insight into the effect of religion on the minds of the parties beyond the conventional structure of mediation. Next up, we have chapter 9. Chapter 9 is a piece by Mr. Tomoyuki Louis Ban. It is titled, Is Mediation an Appropriate Forum for Dispute Resolution in the Context of Domestic Violence? So Tomoyuki's piece focuses on the impact and degree of power imbalances in this context as to whether family mediation is appropriate when one party has been a victim or survivor of domestic violence. He considers public policy concerns as well as the measures aimed at balancing these concerns. At its core, there might be perceived conflict between requiring the perpetrator to take public responsibility and the private nature of mediation. To this end, he sets out frameworks that incorporate screening processes, to determine the suitability of mediation for such cases. Next up, in Chapter 10, we have an entry by Mr. Yap Shikai on lessons from transformative mediation and how it can benefit Singapore's mediation landscape. Shikai explores an outlook on transformative mediation and how it could value add to the Singapore mediation landscape for various disputes. This type of mediation empowers parties to describe their own issues and seek their own solutions. Parties can take control of their situation. He outlines several other benefits of transformative mediation while also considering the limitations of Asian culture, such as the importance of faith, the perceived standing of a mediator, as well as other practical difficulties. Last but not least, we have an entry by Mr. Benedict Koh in Chapter 11, titled Paise, Apologies, Restorative Justice and Criminal Mediation in Singapore. Paise, Benedict's fun chapter dissects this Singlish phrase for apology and examines the role of apologies in promoting restorative justice in criminal mediation through the lenses of Singapore's culture. He expounds on the different components of an apology, such as acknowledgement, affect, and vulnerability, and explains that an apology's ability to empower the victim, plus restore power balances and strengthen relationships. And that is all we have from our 11 authors. Congratulations to all of you for having written really award-winning essays that are really thought-provoking in today's world. It has been a pleasure to read your entries, and I believe that the editors concur with myself on that. CIIM 6 is available for purchase if you go to World Scientific Publishing Company's website. It is also available on Amazon, as well as Kinokuniya, and the NUS Co-op for those who are on NUS campus. So there is really no excuse at all not to purchase your next copy of CIIM, especially if you already have the 5 preceding volumes. And this takes us to the end of our book launch. But before we all go, I would like to invite everyone to turn on your cameras, so that we can celebrate together with the authors in a photo op. So what is going to happen next is I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and one of my many colleagues here will be taking the screenshots. And so for 3 seconds, for the next 3 seconds, fix your hair, look pretty, try not to blink. If you need eye drops for your eyes, put some eye drops. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So at the count of 3, we'll be taking screenshots. So because there's quite a lot of you, we will have to scroll a little bit. So try and keep your smile frozen, look enthusiastic for 3 seconds, okay? 1, 2, 3. Great. So we have brilliant shots. Once again, everyone, thank you for joining us for the book launch of Contemporary Issues in Mediation, Volume 6. It has been a pleasure having you with us today. Once again, don't forget to purchase your next copy, especially, like I said, if you already have the 5 copies, there is no reason not to add orange to the rainbow, Okay, thank you, everyone. And this brings us to the end of the book launch.